Hey everybody, it's Sam Jacobs. Happy Friday. Welcome to Friday Fundamentals. We've got this week's guest back on the show, Brandon Meyers, the Chief Revenue Officer of Adara, incredible sales leader, incredible ad tech expert, and somebody that worked his way up from the very bottom. He started at Adara as an individual contributor and then was promoted to CRO in 2016 and has been leading growth and strategic changes as they've encountered situation after situation. It's just a really inspiring story. So we're going to talk to Brandon about a key quality of leadership, which is empathy and how you lead with empathy. And he's going to tell us his ideas and some of his thoughts about why that's so important. Now, before we get there, we want to thank our sponsor. Friday Fundamentals is brought to you by Outreach. Outreach triples the productivity of sales teams and empowers them to drive predictable and measurable revenue growth. By prioritizing the right activities and scaling customer engagement with intelligent automation, Outreach makes customer-facing teams more effective and improves visibility into what really drives results. Now, Brandon, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Sam. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So our question for Friday Fundamentals that we put to you today, sir, is tell us why leading with empathy is such a critical skill for a C-level executive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing that I want to comment about empathy and leading with empathy is that it's hard. And it's also something that I'd say until recent history, not something that necessarily has been focused on. And so, we're kind of all starting from almost the same place when it comes to leading with empathy. And it's a muscle that needs to be built up over time. And I think just as with many other skills, it requires consistency, focus, and awareness. And I'd say those are kind of the key pillars to leading with empathy. You have to be consistently aware of what's going on and how do you address certain topics on an individual basis or more broadly. And it also requires focus, diligence, and patience. And so those are some of the ways that I think about leading with empathy and what's required to be successful in that arena today.
Walk us through just a little bit of detail on consistency, focus, and awareness. Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, so I think awareness is to really kind of have an eye on what's happening more broadly and how can that impact or affect an individual. And so I think it's really important as a leader for you to understand the current environments that may be stressors on individuals within your team, or organization, or partners that you're working with. And figure out a way to connect with them in a way that resonates with them. But if you're not aware of the broader situation or some of the things that may be stressors to an individual, then you may go into new engagement, kind of with blinders on and not, able to accurately address or modify your approach with an individual to reflect, what may or may not be going on in that person's situation at any given time. Really interesting example of that is this morning I was on the phone call with a vendor. He seemed to, be nervous or worried about something, and it was very clear that he was distracted. So I took a step back. I did know that this person was from Brazil, and obviously there was a lot of things going on in Brazil at the moment as it relates to COVID. And so I just asked the question, and we ended up having a conversation. He talked to me about one of his family members that was kind of on the front lines of healthcare in Brazil, and they've been impacted by COVID in a pretty dramatic and phenomenal way. And all that took was just for me to be aware of what's going on, how that might connect back with this individual and what's going on in their life. And now we had a different type of conversation that allowed us to actually get to the business part later. If I did not take a step back to empathize with what may be going on with that person's situation, he likely wouldn't have been engaged at any point in that discussion. And I think that type of quality is pretty important to be able to get to the outcome that you so desire out of that individual connection or contact.
So that's a great example. And how does focus relate? Tell us a little bit about that, because I thought that's an interesting word to use when we talk about empathy.
Yeah, I think focus means that you have to be engaged in that moment with that individual. We kind of all run today at 1,000,000 miles a minute, and it's really easy to multitask in a conversation or not be 100% there. And the focus part, to me, it's actually being there, being engaged, and being present. And it's really hard to create a space for empathy if you're not present in a conversation. And I think that presence and that focus is required in order to have a genuine connection with an individual on the other side.
Makes a lot of sense. So when we're thinking about empathy and leadership with empathy, it's consistency, it's focus, and awareness. Brandon, if folks want to reach out to you, remind us of the best way to get in touch. Remind us of your email address, because I think people will want to get in touch. So how do we get in touch?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great tool. Brandon Meyers, I'm the CRO at Adara, or you can reach me via email, Brandon, Brandon, .Meyers, MEYERS, at Adara, ADARA.com.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. If folks want to reach me, you can. LinkedIn.com/theWordIn/Sam F. Jacobs. And thanks to our sponsor, Outreach, tripling the productivity of sales teams the world over. Go to outreach.io for more information. Brandon, thanks so much for being our guest this week.
Thanks, Sam.